Welcome to the WA Property Q&A, the podcast where I explore the ins and outs of buying property in Western Australia. I'm your host, Peter Fletcher, and each week I interview local property experts to help you to develop a deep understanding of the nuances of buying property in WA. From market trends to legal considerations, no topic is off limits. But before we dive in, a friendly reminder. While we provide valuable information, it's important to note that nothing discussed in this podcast should be construed as personal investment advice. Always remember to seek the appropriate professional advice for your specific circumstances. Now, let's get started and unlock the secrets to successful property buying in WA. Welcome to the WA Property Q&A podcast. My name is Peter Fletcher. I'll be your host for the day, and with me is Suzanne Brown.
Hi, Peter.
Suzanne Brown is the principal and founder of Rentwest Solutions in Applecross, one of the bigger real estate property management firms in Perth, managing over 1,500 properties, built organically, as I understand it.
Oh, that's right.
There's a lot I love about the way Sue goes about doing her business. And today I want to talk to Sue about what Sue is an expert at, and that is what makes a good rental property. And I also want to talk to Sue about the new tenancy legislation. Yes.
Yeah.
Shall we start there?
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Okay. So there's new tenancy legislation proposed that's going to amend the Residential Tenancies Act.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Yep. So give us the Soldier's 5 on.
So yes, as REWA have advocated very heavily to retain the no grounds termination, which is really pleasing to see the government have listened to us in terms of that really affecting supply, which is the major issue that is affecting the vacancy rate at the moment. And I'm pretty sure we're the only state to be able to retain that, which is in Australia, which is great news.
Can I just interrupt there? So, can you just explain to me what the benefit of retaining no grounds terminations are? Like it just, I can't imagine why, what no grounds actually means, because you would never terminate a tenancy for no reason.
No. Look, it's only used on periodic tenancies. And again, it's periodic tenancies are a minimal part of your portfolio. And from there, DeMeers said it was only used in 1.8% of occasions in periodic tenancies. So there was argument on both sides. DeMeers were like, well, if it's used so rarely, why have it? And we were like, it's used rarely, we should retain it, because when we need to use it, we really need to use it. Some examples would be if you had a magistrate will never evict for, let's say, excessive water bills that haven't been paid by the tenant. The court will not evict on those grounds. So a tenant could rack up, $1,000, $2,000 worth of water bills, never pay their utilities, and we couldn't do anything about it. So we would use it in those cases. Definitely use it for antisocial behaviour. Sometimes we might have a tenant that's very aggressive. We don't want to give them a reason. We just want to end the tenancy. Sometimes owners have, a lot of times too, you have tenants that they're actually electing for a periodic tenancy due to work contracts. We've got a really transient workforce in WA, so they might say, look, my contract's only for 6 months. Can I go on periodic till I know that's going to be renewed? And then we want owners to retain that right of, basically, I think it's we don't want the erosion of owners' rights for their property, continual erosion of what they can and can't do. So, and very rarely would we evict a tenant without giving them a good reason. The owner's selling, the owner's moving family in, the owner's going to move back, coming back from overseas, they're moving in themselves, they're renovating, a whole host of work. we extend that courtesy to every tenant of giving them a reason why we're taking their home back from them. So, again, very rarely used. The concern was once it was in periodic tenancies, suddenly the government would then move to bring it into fixed-term tenancy. So in some of the eastern states that you actually can't end a fixed-term tenancy. They roll over to continual. So it's just that continual erosion that we were trying to protect from our owners.
Is it an owner might want to lease a property for 2 years and that's it, and then they might have plans that...
Yeah, right, yeah. People go travelling, they go, we're going to caravan for 18 months and this is when our property's available. We wanted to shore that up for owners that they actually can get their property back when they want it, because in COVID times you saw the legislation that came in that you couldn't evict tenants.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. And again, it came back to supply. We need those owners to assist with the supply of private housing for...
And did you detect, did you as a property management agency and REWA, and I know that you're not here talking on behalf of REWA, you're talking just on behalf of Rentwest and yourself, but was there a sort of an indication that people would abandon the ownership of rental properties if these aggressive legislation came in?
Yeah, so I think what helped REWA in particular with their lobbying was we went out to 10,000, the members themselves went out to over 10,000 owners and got 10,000 responses to a survey, and 67% said they would sell if that came in. So that was pretty significant research to be able to provide the government. And
imagine if 67% of owners suddenly sold off their rental stock. The rents are already diabolical. Imagine what would happen.
Horrendous.
Then.
Yeah.
Wow.
It would be. Yeah. And again, I think would they? Push came to shove. Would they actually sell? I think it keeps coming back to that asset class. We just can't keep having the government interfering in an asset class where you put your money and telling you what you can and can't do with it.
Yes, they don't do it with shares.
No.
Yeah, why should they do it?
With property. So
I get there's some sort of, there's social responsibility in investing in an asset that is so connected with people's lives, unlike a share. But you've got to
balance that.
Yeah, you've got to strike that balance. Yeah,
you do.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. And I think the minister's done that. She really, Sue Ellery really understood that balance of both sides. So.
Yeah, the legislators, they do have an issue on their hands, don't they? They've got to, they've got to think through the problems.
They do.
Okay, so that's one.
That's the one. The other ones are pets, which is going to be quite contentious. So pets will be allowed in every property unless an owner has good reason not to allow them. I think the devil's going to be in the detail with all of these reforms. And so we'll
turn up with a horse.
Yeah.
Might be a bit challenging.
Yeah, so it won't be, and I've heard people say to me, we won't just accept them, we won't accept the application, but it will be more like you'll turn up a routine inspection and suddenly there'll be a pet when there wasn't one, or they won't put them on an application because they, we can't discriminate against having pets.
Yeah, so the tenants won't have to disclose it.
Yeah. I mean, they will have to pay a bond. So, again, the devil's going to be in the detail. But it will be that at any point in time, they will say, I'm getting a dog, and the owner won't be able to refuse unless... And again, from research I've done in the eastern states, the applications that have gone to VCAT or the tribunals very rarely have the magistrate awarded in favour of the owner. So, I suppose there's religious grounds, there's medical allergies, but it comes down to, if you've got a furnished property and you've got people have their dogs sleeping in the bed, the next tenancy, do they want to sleep in a bed where people have had a dog in there? If you've got a nice leather lounge, do you want cats clawing at it? Whole host of things. So I think that's going to be another jarring one for owners.
And for tenants, I imagine, where they go, well, inexperienced pet owners, let's get a dog, and next minute the dog's chewed the architraves off the or the skirting boards, as they do.
And there's some instances where we wouldn't accept an application with a pet. If you've got a small 2-bedroom place in Butler with no shade, no outdoor area, and the tenants have got a dog, that's not a suitable property to have a dog, and we would decline. Even though the owners might want a application okay with a tenant with pets, we would decline that application based on it's not suitable. So the other one is minor modifications, and again we're waiting on who deems what to be minor.
Minor modification. My God, that could take any shape like that. Yeah, that's a real can of worms, that one.
It is. So again, they're saying, tenants in Europe can go and repaint a whole house. My argument with Demirs was, but we have a 3-month bond. I'm okay with the tenant painting the house if we had 3 months worth of rent as bond. Again, I understand it's their home, but it's the owner's property. And again, I think it's about these modifications done in a responsible way where it also protects the tenant so that they're not open, they're not putting holes in walls where, there might be a water pipe or might be, putting a grab rail in a shower where you've got marble tiles that are going to be a really expensive item to replace down the track.
Well, I'm guessing that the legislators are thinking minor modifications look like picture hooks.
Picture hooks, yeah.
So, picture hooks, yeah. Okay, have some picture hooks and make the home feel like home. Get that, but then is there a responsibility to fix it up when you leave, or do you just leave the picture hooks there?
For the next person.
The next person.
And even it's as simple as those command hooks, that they advertise on TV that they're for tenants and so forth. They take a lot of paint off when you remove them. So even though they're marketed for that purpose, so it's about working with tenants. Again, just asking. We're not wanting to withhold that permission, but again, I think it's extending that courtesy to an owner of saying, I would like to do this, and then as professionals working through the risks that might come for a tenant for doing those things.
What does the government hope to achieve out of all this? Like, are they trying to just make homes nicer to live in for tenants? It doesn't sound like they're doing anything to increase supply.
No.
Which is therefore to say that rents are going to stay persistently high. What are they trying to achieve?
So I think from their research, they were is telling them that people are renting for life or longer than they have previously, and maybe that's not a total affordability issue. Maybe it's just a changing times where the next generation, don't want to own things like we used to. You look at Uber and all those things. So just a changing nature of the population, I suppose, that they're going to be renting for longer. And but again, our leases, our average leases are tenancies are really for around 2 years.
Yep.
So, we're not a Europe where we rent the same house for 20 years. So it's very... Very different scenarios.
It's interesting, isn't it? We're not a Europe, and the US is a bit, from what I can understand, it's a bit Europe-esque in that some tenancies are, they're very long term, and people make that choice, and okay, the government want to make these changes, and it sounds like it'll be good for nice for the tenants, but if it adds an impost to the owner and you get people going, you know what, I'm not going to buy an investment property, I'll put my money in the share market where I don't have people pestering me as to how I use my money. Interesting days, Sue Brown. Interesting days.
It is, and it will be, I've spoken to a few owners that are upset about the pets thing in particular. It'll be interesting to see if it will affect supply. I mean, we're lucky at the moment. We've got a lot of eastern states investors seeing value in Perth, so they're picking up stock that our owners are letting go, our local owners and so forth.
Wonder if the pet lobby was actually behind this. Well, let's encourage more tenants to have pets.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
now we're selling more dogs and cats. I'm being a bit cynical there.
Cynic in you, yeah.
Right, okay. Anything else we need to cover on that?
The major ones were pets, minor modifications. There's a second round of reforms coming, second half of the year, so around December. I think that will cover break leases and a few other issues. The other thing is DMIRs want to be involved in all of the dispute resolution rather than the magistrates' court. A lot of people
Can't see that being necessarily a bad thing.
No.
Is that right? Because I know from my experience from years ago, going to court was a real pain in the backside, and if there was a more efficient system, I don't think there'd be too many property managers or property owners who'd be unhappy about that.
No, and I think court's intimidating, for
100%.
for property managers and especially those that don't feel comfortable in that, and young ones and those with less experience. So I don't have an issue. I mean, DMIRs, and I think at the moment, we have no recourse if a magistrate makes some rogue decisions or at the minute we have a committee with DMIRs that we attend, which is a property industry advisory committee. So we have a really direct point there to raise issues, whether it's timing, whether it's decisions, and I think with DMIRs we'll get precedent. So we'll have this is the decision, whereas magistrates, depending on what court and what magistrate and who.
Some of the decisions that came out of the magistrates' court were just
Horrendous.
Random.
They were,
just
very.
Well, actually, I don't like the owner that's sitting in front of me. Find in favour of the tenant.
Dead right, yeah. And we've heard cases of some at the moment aren't ending tenancies. So they're not letting the tenant, not making the tenant vacate.
Wow.
So
you've got a tenant there that's not paying rent, bashing the place around. You can stay for a bit longer.
Yeah, because of the market. So I don't look again. I think it'll need to be put in place and the process roll out, and then we can, but I think we've got influence there that we can go, this isn't working. I think a lot of property managers are still scarred from COVID when they had to do mediation with DMIRs, and for a lot of them it wasn't a great experience, but yeah.
Yeah, COVID times was challenging for property managers and for owners. My God. It was,
very difficult time.
Yeah, it was, in a way it was fun in that everyone sort of just had to just stop what they're doing and just kind of chill for a bit. But then the realities started to go,
Yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty. I did feel for tenants in COVID because, owners had the opportunity to freeze their repayments, do a whole host of things. Tenants were really at the mercy of an owner, and the government, I suppose, putting that legislation in to protect them and give them some rights.
There was a lot of unknowns at the time.
There was, yeah.
What do we do? Yeah. And I think the government, everyone was just making stuff up as they went along. So.
Yeah, which is fair enough. No one had been through a pandemic like that before, so I wouldn't want to be in Morrison's shoes.
No. Well, Morrison's shoes or the local, our local premier. And of course, you'd probably want to be in his shoes at the moment because he's retiring.
A $250,000 salary for life.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. How do you get a gig like that?
Yeah, we'll become the premier.
Right. No chance of that. Now, Sue, I want to talk, I think we've covered that off pretty well. I want to talk about investment properties, what makes a good investment property, but more particularly, what makes a good rental property. So where do we start with identifying a good rental property? What's your thoughts?
So we take over a lot of new builds for developers that do house and land packages for investors, and when we're advising them on the plans or what to actually build, I mean, air conditioning's always got to be at the top of the list, and it's not cutting it now just with one aircon, one split system in the living. It's like we want them
or the old evaporative air conditioner on the roof.
And we always say bedroom sizes. You know, we're finding especially kids and teenagers are living more and more in their bedrooms, you know, studying there, gaming there, doing whatever. So we're saying rather than pokey 4 bedrooms, you know, let's do generous, you know, 3 bedrooms in some
air
cases.
Conditioning, decent sized bedrooms, and you'd prefer a decent sized 3x2 than a tiny 4x2.
Yeah, look, if they're compromising the plan of the home to just get a 4th bedroom on, we always say, look, just give a bit more to the living space, give a bit more to bedrooms, and make it a 3. And internet's paramount. You know, people they're checking if we have the NBN.
Is that a factor? Is it right?
Well, the work
because
from home.
Okay. A lot of people are working from home, but if they can get 5G on their phones, then
not necessary. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a factor? Or people still want the NBN?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Because they want to sit there and stream Netflix and, you know, have basically all you can eat experience, whereas 5G is a bit limited. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then most definitely clean is top of tenants list. You know, the newer ones do tend to attract tenants. What you see in apartments at the moment are, you know, tenants, again, probably they're quite transient. If they're happy living in apartments, they will move to the next apartment block that's got the newer pool and the newer gym, the newer amenities.
Really? Okay.
So you'll find a lot of ageing apartment buildings have probably higher vacancies, not right at the moment, but in previous times. And probably low maintenance. You know, tenants, everybody's a bit time poor, so tenants don't necessarily want, you know, too many gardens to look after or too much garden.
Let's talk about. So what you're describing there is basically tenants wanting or preferring something new. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
They like the.
new.
Well, let's face it. You know, first homeowners back when I bought my first home, it was a dump. Honestly, it was a dump. And I can't imagine anyone volunteering to start their first home in the dump that we started out in. I know that, well, Rita told me after, because I bought it and she didn't see it until about 3 weeks later. And she came out and she parked out the front door and she just burst into tears before she'd even seen it. So we almost didn't get married as a result of that. Thinking. But yeah, you know, like everyone likes something new. Where I'm going with this is that there's a bit of a fight between newness and amenities and capital growth, because you can get you know where I'm going there. So you get the, you know, beautiful 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment that does attract a good rent and does attract a good quality tenant, but basically not going to get any capital growth out of it. Yeah.
But it could also be just, you know, something really nice in Vic Park that hasn't been painted for 10 years. Just give it a lick of paint and freshen it up. Smells a lot nicer, looks a lot nicer. You know, you're not living with, you know, previous marks on walls from previous people. And I think it's maintaining your investment, especially in this. When tenants are paying really top market rent, I think it's important to invest back in your property.
Do tenants, in your experience, do they focus much on location? Is it a big consideration?
Well, yes. Not probably as much.
That's one of the most equivocal answers I've ever been given.
You'll find now, I think the working from home and the less commuting, you know, has probably, people are more inclined to live further out where it's more affordable and they don't have to do the commute to work as much as they 5 days a week. That's played an impact. So we're seeing those areas, you know, but some of the rents they're getting, I mean, you know, you're looking at $500 for a 3x2 in Butler, which just, you know, wasn't that long ago that we were probably getting $280. So.
What?
And I think what we're seeing in areas like Baldivis as such, we're hitting an affordability, peak or a ceiling, I suppose. There's sort of when you're heading up to $600 a week for a family home in Baldivis, and it's 35Ks from the city. I think we're hitting a ceiling with rents where people just, you can't wring out any more out of what they're bringing in.
Are you finding that investors or tenants are doubling and tripling up in a home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after COVID, the house sizes went smaller. So people, we saw a lot of marriage breakups. People didn't like having to spend that much time with each other, realised they didn't necessarily like each other. And a lot of shared housing tenants went, well, if I'm going to be stuck home and locked down with you, I don't really like you either. So they went to smaller house sizes. But no, definitely that's changing now, where you'll have people sharing again a lot bigger. Yeah, couples, 3 couples in a 3-bedroom, which 6 people, which we wouldn't have seen that for a long time.
That sounds like our neighbours.
Yeah.
There's about 25 of them.
Yeah.
No, I'm exaggerating, but there's a few.
Are they
there.
young? No.
20s.
Yeah.
In their
yeah,
20s.
we're seeing it.
And professionals.
Professionals, yeah. And it's funny, I think.
It was just there's a whole cohort of them in.
Yeah, we're seeing it a lot with professionals, and maybe it's because I don't know whether they're shift workers, whether it just works for them. I think it's, people are making it work.
We had one of them chose to sleep in his car outside our house.
Right.
And he'd
After
leave
a big
his
night
car.
out.
No, literally every night. He'd just come home from work, leave his car running, and just sleep in his car overnight. All night. He'd have his car running for 5 or 6 hours.
Oh, okay. That's
it was weird.
Yes.
And I don't know what was behind that. But anyway,
no.
It's interesting. Now, in terms of older homes especially, or let's rental properties generally, where are the big maintenance costs?
So air conditioning, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Maintaining gardens can be a cost. If you let a lawn die, if a tenant lets a lawn die over time and has to rectify that, the tenant or the owner.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose.
Let me just ask you another follow-up question. Are you finding that owners would prefer to pay strata levies and the built-in maintenance that gets done with strata levies, or DIY their own maintenance?
I would say I think we're still away from the apartment market. I mean, it's there's less supply now because of, I think there's just less listing stock and less rental stock, and less construction going on full stop. There's less new developments starting. But I think we've just still got to get over the stigma of apartments, apartment living. Again, if we go back to Europe, there's nothing wrong. You have your pets, you live and you have a lifestyle, whereas we look like there's something wrong if you go and buy an apartment.
It just seems that it's still not the Australian thing to do.
Yeah, it's a garden and the backyard and the Barbie and
you've got to have a cricket pitch in the backyard and a place to have your esky and your jet ski and But then people are time poor and not wanting to maintain that, so it does make sense, I think. Hence the emergence of the cottage blocks.
Yes, and dual keys. Have you heard of the dual keys that are happening?
Yeah, tell us more.
So I think that's obviously it generates, double income or a lot more generous income of rents. It does address a part of the supply issue.
So just explain what dual key is.
So you would get a block where there would be, say, a 3x2 house with maybe a 1-car garage and an entry, and then you would also have a parapet wall, and then you would have a dividing wall, a party wall, and you would have a small 2x1 also sort of.
So it's kind of like a granny flat, only connected?
Yes, connected, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, and it is on the same title. So
yes,
it's
that's
not
right, yeah.
unlike a duplex where you sort of
Yeah.
cut it down the middle. It's
Yeah. So I suppose in time you could turn that into a 5-bedroom, 2-3 bathroom.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting. I'm a little bit concerned about parking issues because I've seen a few subdivisions where they've maybe approved 12 in a row, different builders, and I think
12 dual key properties in a row.
Yeah.
And they're hoping that everyone will be able to park not on the street.
Yes. And considering housing sizes are getting bigger, I can see that being an issue with street parking, cars being lined up and down the street. But we'll see.
Well, to speculate about the future, we hear that once we have fully electric cars, and then once those cars are fully self-driving, then there's a question, well, why do you need to own a car?
And
just get
garaging and all the rest. When do you think that'll be, Peter?
Sue, let me just get my crystal ball out. There's a lot of things I am. Fortune teller's not one of them. Yeah. So, no, interesting times.
I think it's not as far off as we think. When you look at AI now and just the pace of change we're going through, I don't think it's as far away as we once thought, but we'll see.
Okay, so you are, in that sentence, you're almost you're connecting AI with the shape of suburbs for the future. Interesting.
Well,
certainly we've seen in COVID times, we saw a big shift in the way people worked. And suddenly your office space where you might have had 500 square metres of office space and then everyone wants to work from home, and then like now I only need 150 square metres of office space for the regular or the monthly staff meeting or something. It is, and that's been driven by the technology, which is to your point that
technology, COVID, had a big part to play in that, obviously. But now it's we're trying to find a temp at the moment to cover some leave, and they're going, work 3 days but 2 days from home, and for us to set up someone from home and security wise and that for a 2-week assignment is challenging. So it's interesting.
And you're one of the champions. At another time, I'd love to talk about the 4-day work week. But that's a topic
another
for
podcast.
Another.
We'll have a good debate on that one.
Okay, so no, that's good, Sue. I think we've covered a fair bit of territory there. Now, you do a fair bit of work with Eastern States buyers agents. Tell me, what are they buying for their clients? And in your opinion, do you think are they heading in the right direction? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I don't. They're paying good money for a lot of properties, and I at the moment I don't think that's too. That's not in the best interest of their clients, because I think the Perth market's got a lot of legs. They're chasing yield, and we're getting some incredible yield in suburbs like Butler, Armidale's incredible. A lot of those suburbs where they can pick up something, for under 400,000, and get even Gosnells. I think I had one that had an 8% yield, so it's incredible. So they seem to be chasing that. They're doing their due diligence with the pest and building reports, so that covers that. But they're just chasing, mainly yield, I think.
So they're chasing yield. In your view, do you think they'll get capital growth?
For the next few years, I think. I think Perth's got a long way, when you look at the median house price of Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, even Adelaide's higher than us at the moment. and the cost of construction. You know, a house and land package, I've got some land coming up in Huntingdale that'll be just shy of 300,000, just over 300,000. The cheapest package you can get is cheapest house you could build on that is 300,000. So you're looking at a $620,000 package in Huntingdale.
Wow.
I mean, it's probably closer to Southern River, but the established market,
fancy end of Huntingdale.
Yeah, but the established market has still got growth there to catch up. So I think if they're buying established stock, I think they'll see growth still.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hope my crystal ball's right.
I hope it is too, Sue. I hope it is too, because there's a lot of frenzy in the market at the moment. There's a lot of people, they're kind of just get my name on the title and I'll pay any, like, I just tried to buy a property in Eden Hill where the agent was guiding for mid-fours, and mid-fours I take to be, let's say, 440 to 460 or in that range. Let's call it 460. It sold for 550.
Wow, that's incredible.
Hard to get your head around that.
It is, isn't it? Just how many offers do you know?
Heaps.
Yeah.
When I was involved in the process early on, there was 7.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's become exacerbated in the last month because listing stock is down to 5,800 now, 5,885.
Yeah, it's incredibly low.
Which is 30% lower than last year and nearly 10% lower than just a month ago.
Yeah.
So you can see the frenzy and the fear of missing out is very real, and with rents continually rising, people are really seriously doing the sums and going, well, if I just pay a bit over the odds, I've got some security in the market, and I've got.
So that FOMO is also in the rental market, and there's one of those changes to the legislation, which is you can't.
Oh yes, annual rent increases.
Annual rent increases, no rent bidding.
But the rent bidding, to be fair, I had a meeting with Demirs probably a month ago about that. The rent, I was saying the rent bidding isn't driven by agents; it is driven purely by desperation of tenants. So you can legislate all you want; it will not stop a tenant coming to you and going, "I will pay an extra $50." It stops an agent saying, somebody else has offered more, Peter.
Yeah,
would you
stops the agent from encouraging
Would you like to put your best offer forward? Would you? Which, is a hard thing. We can't tell tenants that now. It doesn't, just because you pay more doesn't mean you get the property.
So now, on the one hand, you're not encouraging it, but now
everyone's
tenant is flying blind.
Yeah.
And then the tenant misses out, and they say, well, why didn't you say anything? Well, I'm not allowed to because of what Demirs have done.
So what do you think now? Everyone will just put more or offer more. When they come to a home open and see 30 other people there, they will just automatically go, I'm going to offer more to get it.
Yeah, or agents saying, I'm not allowed to encourage rent bidding. I can say this property is on the market at 550 and what you do from there is your choice.
Yeah. So once again, we come back to supply.
Yeah.
And that is driving this desperation. I haven't seen it, this much desperation.
I've not seen
I don't
it
think ever.
I've not seen it either.
No,
it's
you've been at the same time as me.
Sue Brown, I know that you have an appointment to go to.
I do.
I'm sure that at some point this afternoon you will be drinking white wine and enjoying a nice lunch, as it is Friday after all. It's been absolutely fantastic to chat. If people want to get hold of you and talk to you about you managing a property for them, how would they do that?
Yeah, email at suzanne@rentwest.com.au. Otherwise, mobiles 0417 916 220.
There you go, folks. You've got the boss's mobile number and direct email. It's not often you get that, and that's a testament to the quality you are, Sue Brown.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And until next week, this has been the WA Property Q&A podcast. And that wraps up another episode of the WA Property Q&A. We hope you found our discussion valuable and gained some valuable insights into the world of property buying in Western Australia. Remember, while we strive to provide useful information, it's crucial to consult with the appropriate professionals before making any investment decisions. Don't forget to tune in next week for another exciting episode where we continue to unravel the mysteries of the WA property market. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, happy property hunting, and remember to seek the right advice for your personal circumstances. Thank you for listening.